welcome back. Let's talk about tooling. You cannot be productive, you cannot build anything without some tools. We think that the Momentix IDE that we have built is compelling. We think there are great reasons to use it. Earlier we saw from Shadid that there is going to be a Visual C plugin, because that's what some people like. Can't be the tool for everybody. Who here has used Eclipse? Do you like Eclipse? Uh-oh. There's people shaking their hands. There's people saying no, but I'm pretty sure most of you said yeah. Because the Momentix IDE is built from Eclipse. Okay, who's owned a Swiss Army knife and done that and not cut themselves? Very good. That's quite commendable. The IDE is a collection of tools to do everything. There's the compiler, there's the linker, there's the debugger, there's the layout designer, there's absolutely everything in there. Well, there's a lot. So, in general, when you have the IDE, you expect an editor, you expect the compiler, you expect the debugger. For most C++ tools, like from the OpenC, the CDT, the C Developer Tools, available at the Eclipse Foundation, that is pretty much what you get. But we get a lot more. So you can autocomplete, looking at the properties. You get the profiler, so that you can be looking at hotspots. You can be finding out which functions are You get the profiler, so you can see which functions are wasting most of your CPU time. Doesn't work in the current beta. I was trying it last night in case I did a hands-on demo, and there won't be a hands-on demo of the profile. Cross-references. It's so easy. You can press Shift-Control-G inside Momentix, inside Eclipse, when you're on a variable, and you can see everywhere it's used. Static analysis. Is this good code? Is this bad code? Refactoring. I want to rename this function. I want to rename these variables. And every file that uses that function in your source will be corrected. Code coverage. Again, I don't think that that is working right now in the current beta, but these are betas. Build tools, yeah, of course. And remote running. The great thing is, of course, you're using Momentix on your laptop, you're connected over Wi-Fi, then maybe somewhere on the other side of the world is the BlackBerry 10 device or the Playbook, and you can be debugging there. You can be changing variables in there. And I think you can even view the registers of the ARM if you are so desiring. So I'm going to quickly go over setting up, managing builds, integration with source control systems, because we need them, the features of the editor, running and debugging, SDK management, profiling and monitoring tools, and everyone else is going to start coming back in here by 4:30. So this could be very rushed, but the slides will be available for downloading later, and the documentation is great, and the tools are pretty intuitive. So you get to see a setup wizard, and you don't need to run this, but it can help you get started if you haven't used the tools before. Just 5 minutes ago, someone who already has their code signing keys was stuck in this wizard because you don't have the P12, and it's trying to get your CSJ files, but the Android SDK had already consumed the CSJ files, so it was stuck. So you don't always have to run this, but it's a really helpful place to start. Now, when you are managing your builds, you can go and use make. The SDK includes gmake, might be badged as qmake, so that you can, at the command line, type make clean, make all, and there's going to be people who want to do it, but that's not as fun as the managed builds. Oh dear, there's the picture of Cascades on top of Qt again. Shadid, that was just, where is he? He's not even here. Okay. Now, the native SDK does bundle all these components. We've seen these today. So, when you are doing a Cascades development, you get Cascades. On top of Qt, you have all those libraries available to you, either from GitHub or they're already there. So if you're a gamer, you're probably not going to care about Qt. You're probably going to care about Cascades. You're going to go right down directly to C++ or C to the APIs. Now, something that I don't think anyone's really mentioned yet today is the platform API in C. It's called BPS, bps.h. So if you look at the C samples, you're going to see people calling bps.h to start getting events. So when you want to get access to the screen or access to the accelerometer inside a game where you're not using cascades, you'd be calling BPS. So all those bits are there and you can use them. So when you are creating a project, you have a bunch of decisions. Inside Eclipse, your project can be in Momentix. The project can be inside your workspace or it can be external. When you are setting up, you have to choose if this is a managed build or a makefile build. If it's managed, then parameters that you set into the Momentix IDE GUI will control your build. If it's makefile, then you've got full control. You have to choose if it's going to be a QNX recursive make, which is slightly smarter than QMake versus your own custom makefile. You have to choose if you're going to be using C or C++. You have to choose if you're building an application or a library. These are all things that as you go a new project, you might want to have in mind. And it really is this easy. You go File, New, Project, and in here are the types of BlackBerry projects. You've got C++, and the ones I'm interested in, though, are the Cascades examples. Because when you do create a new project, Shadid had shown some of the samples previously, a lot of them are already built in to your SDK download, which is convenient. That way you don't have to check into GitHub. You don't have to check it out from GitHub or clone it from GitHub later. So these examples are here. So you can go, I want to see a Cascades example, and I want it to be the lightning crossfader. Now it has here two versions of it, one in QML, one in C++. So you can sit there and compare the logic of QML versus C++. I already have those created. So inside the C++ one, we see a very standard looking main for Cascades, where you create an application, you create the app class, which is the one in this other file, and then you sit in the execute loop until the application is exited. Now inside that class, not many things in the header file. So everything's in there to set up all the containers using the docs and the layout. Now, if you're familiar with the classes, that may make sense. If you're familiar with the QML, it's going to make sense because you know the classes. But if you just look at the QML, some of this layout stuff's going to be a lot easier. So here's the pure QML version. Perhaps I didn't click it hard enough. Okay, so the benefits there are it's more nested, it's more hierarchical, so it makes sense when you look at it. It's kind of like a HTML document. This container holds this. If you compare that, oh, and then there's the preview tab. Now, the aim of the preview tab is to show you what the QML will look like, but it isn't functional. So right now, you can't slide it, and the JavaScript will never execute. You get to see what it would look like at initialization. Now, we have some recommendations, which are just recommendations. They don't matter at all, of how you should set up your build environment. Now, if you're an individual developer and you're not using Qt and it's new code, just pick managed. Make a managed project because you don't have to worry about the build files and it's going to be portable across different hosts. If you are doing stuff where you're trying to use a different build server because your project is so big it makes sense for everyone's check-ins to be checked out by a build server, then we recommend picking the QNX recursive make. You don't need the IDE to build, which means that part doesn't have to be executing on what could possibly be a headless host, which is doing the builds. You can use the same makefile on all platforms, so that makefile will work on the Mac installation, will work on the PC Windows installation, and they're going to be pre-constructed. So the tooling will create those makefiles for you, including the proper libraries and everything you need to get that basic app started. But there's more choices. If you are doing a Qt Cascades project, pick Cascades project. If you wanted to make a Qt project that didn't use Cascades, then the easiest way to do that is to create a Cascades project, but then remove the Cascades dependencies. And there's a slide coming up that shows you how to do that and shows how easy that is. If you are porting existing code, you've got a big project, lots of dependencies, then custom makefile. You already know exactly what your dependencies are, how you want to go into directories and build things. You've already found years ago what the optimal way to do that is. If you're building a native extension library, pick a native extension. And if you're not going to use the IDE, pick a custom makefile. Oh, I left my water down there. So the new project wizard we already saw. Sorry if I'm rushing so much. This here is how you create a non-Cascades Qt project. That's all it takes. Q application, Q push button, a main that creates a Q application, because that's where the threads and the signal handling is done. A Q push button, tell it what size you want it to be, tell it to show, ask the application where that threading and signal handling is done to execute. And it'll sit in that loop until the program exits. So that's in the graphic there, the Hello World button that comes out of that. And that's not as pretty as using a Cascades button. When you want to use libraries, you just have to add them. The wizard to add them is really simple. Again, we have libraries that we know about. You can go through, check the checkboxes, add them. If it's a library we don't know about, then the GUI is all there for you to put in a dependency. The command line options are there inside the GUI, so that if you know to get this to work on a different platform, you needed to do -L socket, which you're probably not going to need because it would have already been specified. You'll just have to add that -L socket inside the IDE. Very simple to make sure the build is working. Sorry, gotta get more water. The Cascades one is slightly bigger. Could you hear me? Excuse me. The Cascades download is going to be bigger. Sorry? As far as I know, that's the only difference. Yeah. Oh, Shadid says it links to the same thing. So don't download both, because that's a real big waste of time. Yep, that's a really good question to repeat that. Why are there two links to download the native SDK and the Cascades SDK? And the answer is you download the same thing, so you don't need both. Maybe that's something we should tidy up on the webpage. And that's useful feedback. Thank you. Right. The question here is about Cascades support on Linux. And yep, sounds like we have some stuff to tidy up. Does sound like that is confusing, and yeah, we should fix that. Okay, adding libraries, just like you would have compiled with libraries on any other platform. -L, the library name. Now, some of these build configurations are out of date because of the way things are going to get implemented now. So when you are choosing, you can choose to compile for a device as debug, so it won't attempt to sign. If you tried to build it for a device as release, it will attempt to sign. So if you don't have your keys installed, the device release wouldn't happen. Now, device profile and device coverage, they don't appear here anymore, but in the run configuration screens, there's a tooling section where you can turn those on. But as I'd already mentioned, they do not work in the current beta, but you won't see them here. So don't wonder where they are. They're in the tooling tab. So that's good. When you do have a managed build, this is the GUI that you see. So you can choose the settings for your tools. Like every possible, well, I don't know if every possible, but a significant percentage of the command line arguments that you might want to give GCC or to the linker are right here. So you can say, do I want debug? Do I want stack protection? Do I want it built for profiling? Do I want it built for code coverage? So there are lots of options you can turn on. You can control your warning levels. Do you believe that warnings should not exist and they should be fatal? All that sort of stuff you can configure here. Because lots of people think, hey, every warning the compiler creators put in there for a reason, so let's make sure our code is warning free. You can enforce that from here. When you do a make, you get exposed to all the variables. So in these screens, you can configure what you'll be passing off to make. Okay, source control integration. Now, integrated into the IDE are CVS, Subversion, and Git. There are plugins for other third-party ones that you can find online, download them. The tool is based on Eclipse, so anything that you'd expect to work with Eclipse should have a very good chance of working inside Momentix. And okay, who here in their development does not use a version control system? Okay, so not many people. How many people are you developing with? With 4? Okay. What do you guys use to share? Oh, that's cool. Because everything here is about efficiency. So whatever works best for you is what you should keep doing. You want to be efficient. Okay, now here are instructions using the IDE to get the rest of the samples that aren't built into the download from GitHub. So it's pretty simple. You just have to give it the Git URL and go get them. And then you have the option of importing all those projects. So all those samples that are there, like showing how to do so much with the controls, showing you how to connect signals and slots, they're all there. They're all downloaded, they're downloadable, they're all open source. Okay, so inside the editor, it's nice to have some features. Inside Momentix, you get syntax highlighting. Syntax highlighting, you may love it, you may hate it, but it's good to see keywords in a different color, comments in a different color. That way, just at a glance, you can tell where things start and stop. You can tell where things are finished. You can tell if your defines have worked properly. If you're defining out blocks of code, shown in here. Auto-completion. I love autocomplete. Have you ever been to a job interview where they ask you to name specific APIs? Oh, okay, maybe it was just me. A lot of certifications seemed to be about being able to rattle off the 256 functions that were on a specific class. With autocomplete and Google, you just need intuition. Autocomplete inside editors, I'm not sure if it made me a better programmer, but it sure made me faster. Because now I hit control space and I can go down arrow 3 times and I can see it. Then I hit bracket and then I get to see the parameter types. It's all right there, all built in. Cross-referencing, I mentioned a second ago. Code formatting. Oh, Code formatting for me opens up a big ball of worms. Have you ever worked with that person who changes your indenting because they didn't like it? You can code format them back. So if you're politically correct at the start of the project, you would agree on a standard and distribute the proper code formatting files between everyone's Momentics, or not. You could give the person who's the fussy one slightly different code formatting descriptors, and everyone else uses the one they don't like. But you shouldn't do that. That'd be bad. Okay, source generation. When you are implementing objects, creating classes, Momentics will build a lot of the boilerplate code for you. It can tell you what you need. It can complete macros. It can fill in QObject properties. The source generation can save a lot of time. Because before source generation, you might have gone to your repository, cut and pasted the standard template, and gone and done it. A second ago, I showed you that main function that creates the application, loads the application implementation, goes into exec. All that's automatically created for you inside Momentics. Refactoring is great when you decide that you want to rename parameters, rename functions, move them, rename classes. All really simple. As simple as clicking on the function name and pressing Shift-Control-R or Alt-F2, depending on if you're on Linux or if you're on Windows. So simple. Refactoring done. Quick fix. When a bug in your code is obvious to the compiler, you get a little red squiggle next to it, like a badly spelt word in Microsoft Word. If you press Control F1, you're going to get suggestions on how you can fix that stuff. So the suggestion might be add a semicolon. The suggestion might be close bracket. That sort of tooling built in. Okay, static analysis. It's a great tool to have in your arsenal because you want to produce the most robust code possible. Static analysis does not look at any parameters, but it looks at the code for correctness and general types of problems that are happening over and over again. The example here that's mentioned on the screen, you didn't have a return type, which is legal C code, but what did you actually intend? Now over here, there's a list of how to treat those problems. So the first one there, assignment in condition. Who has ever gone while a equals 7, close bracket, and they did the assignment operator instead of the comparison operator? Who's done that? Nice. You can turn that into a fatal error. There are, of course, there are cases when it is legitimate and you do want to do it, but you can stop that code from getting through, or you can turn it into a warning. And when you start to see warnings in your code, you've got to think about, why is that there? Is this the most intuitive way I could write this code? The adage is that if you write your code as cleverly as possible, then you're not smart enough to debug it. Because, hey, that was as clever as you could get. So if you do get rid of all these warnings, do turn them into errors, then it's going to be easier for other people coming in your team, no matter how big it is, from 2 people, hundreds of people, or you 6 months later. Oop. The QML editor is a great feature. 1 or 2 components that are nice to see are not working in this beta. They're the navigation bar is the key one, but it's just so wonderful to use. If I go over here, unmaximize that. Over here, I have a bunch of tools. So if I do want to have, if I want to have a progress indicator or a button, I just have to go and drop it in. Here, that code generation comes in as well. Some of the attributes on button are ID, the text, which is displayed on the button, and what to do when the button is clicked. So by dragging a button into the area where you wanted it inside your QML form, you get all that instantly. Now the ID inside the button is how you can refer to it from other code. So inside your JavaScript, from clicking on another button, you can say button ID dot text equals some new value. Oops. A running and debugging. When you run, you can run it as an application or debug as an application are the two easiest ways to do things. You saw the other profiles, which I mentioned don't quite exist anymore with the debug as profiler. But you right-click here on falling blocks, and then you can do run as a BlackBerry application. What that'll do is if you have active targets, which you can manage from inside this IDE, it will compile it and deploy it to that target. Now, because we are running, it doesn't matter if it's a debug or a release build. Running just means the debugger isn't attached. So if the debugger is attached, by default, as soon as main is entered, GDB will stop the program, the IDE will pop up, and you'll get to see main. And you can change things as you wish. Now, when the application is running, anything that you are f-printing to standard out, I think standard out works as well, or standard error, you'll get to see inside the console inside Eclipse. So you can put old-fashioned, like I'm at here, I did this 6 times in there, if you don't want to set breakpoints, if you don't want to go through and debug it with all the tools. You can still see the console and you can get onto it. Something, before I go on, something that I think is really great is inside the IDE, you get to see an amazing amount of features of your devices. Now, I'm not sure why that disconnected, so hopefully this will work. Oh well. Now, you see that one there that's highlighted? Launch SSH. So from inside Momentix, you can SSH to your dev alpha and drive around. So you're there, you're in your shell, you can go and look at files, you can go and look in temp, you can find where the fonts are, you can explore it using command line if that's what you like. But over here in this view, we also have Target File System Navigator. My device didn't connect, but if it did, you can see the file system there and you can explore it and see what's on there. And in the case of those assets, which for debug releases are readable and writable, you can change them without redeploying. Now, there are a lot of steps that happen. So when you click on Run, it's not instant because it has a lot of work to do. It does a build. So if you haven't changed any files, this is going to be pretty fast. The build and the compile will just happen. That gives you your binary. That gives you your executables for, if you're using the simulator, an x86 running QNX, or if you're using a real device, for ARM LE7 running QNX. Your assets and the binary are then pushed across into a package, like I was talking about before, which is the bar file. That's then deployed to the device, which is then, sorry, it's deployed. The device is then sent an install command, which you'll see in the logs if you ever use the command line. It's installed. The app is then launched. Then you, the developer, can gather your logs. You can upload them. You can look at them in the IDE console. Your hello world is executing, and you've got full control of it. If you were attached with that debugger as it's running, I think you can be changing registers even. You have the logs. You can fetch them. You have the console. You can watch what your application's doing. Having those breakpoints that you can set, it's fully backed by GDB. So if you already know the GDB command to stop on certain watches, or to stop at functions that have this in their name, you can type that in and make that happen. The IDE is built on top of GDB. All of GDB is there. You can make it all happen. Some of the other options you get are you can do a QNX file transfer. You can specify through the IDE that you want to blow away the data directory, so you can be testing with a brand new app. You can specify that you want this to be uploaded, so you can be testing with stale data, with old data. All of that is already built in. Okay, I mentioned the launch configuration. When you are doing debug as or run as, just like for those people who said they had used Eclipse, just like you have debug as, run as configurations in Java, exactly the same thing, slightly different values. So main, you can choose the project and target. The arguments, you can specify the arguments that the program will receive. The environment, you can specify the environmental variables your program will receive. Now inside your bar descriptor, I think you can set environmental variables as well. So if you want the same code to run differently and set tweaked by an environmental variable, your bar descriptor can be the gateway to that behavior. What to upload, what to debug. So you can give specific options there for GDB. The source code, common settings, and the tools. So in the tools is where things like the profile and memory analysis are going to be. Well, they're there, but as I said, not quite working in this beta. Oh dear. Okay, I mentioned the tools section. So you could click on application profiler in there, or see the code coverage or the memory analysis. And there are some good slides coming up about what you'll be able to do with those tools. I'm really sorry for rushing so much, but it's very close to finish time. Okay. What? Yeah, okay, computer, whatever you want. Okay, the profiling when it is there is going to be spectacular to use. Of course, it will already be built in that you can see over here, inside main CC, the number of milliseconds that you spent inside that function. You can see the percentage of CPU time for the run that was spent inside of that function. That's going to be there. Down here, you get to see a huge tree that is breaking down what the thread was doing, how long it was doing it. So you can find your hotspots. You can find code that could be optimized. You can find redundancies. Are you doing things too many times? These tools are going to be there to help you from the start. Now, okay, how profiling works. Okay, we can see how much memory is used by your application, the types of memory. Analyze the heap. I mentioned navigating the file system. Code coverage. It's fantastic for testing. I believe in test-driven design and implementation. So if you are writing your unit tests first, then this will show you that they're doing their job and helping you deliver stable, rock-solid code for BlackBerry 10. Memory analysis, I think, is a fantastic tool. Now, jump ahead to these graphs, because this shows you that you're doing something far too often. Here you can see that there was an allocation immediately followed by a deallocation. So a new and a free, a new and a delete, a new and a delete, again and again and again. And that's a pattern that if you see that in your analysis, what you've done is inside a loop, you've been creating a resource, letting go of the resource in the loop. So these tools are going to help you find mistakes just like that. If you see your allocations doing this, then you've allocated too many things. You may want to be letting go of them. All of these, okay, maybe not the pretty graphs and the profiler giving you that output, all these tools are available from the command line. So if you want to type QCC, which is a QNX recompiled GCC, it's there. The QMake is there. All the tools you're going to need are there. The linker is there. GDB is there. If you want to use the command line, you absolutely can. This is all about efficiency, having openness. These tools are well known, well documented, and delivering a fantastic BlackBerry 10 development experience. So, in summary, we've tried to build a tooling set that can do a lot. It's not going to be everything to everyone, and we are here to listen. So if you want different tooling, you need specific tooling. If you see something we're doing which to you screams inefficiency, let us know. We want to hear it. We want the experience to be the best it can be. For more information, hit up the website. And these slides are going to be available. Thank you very much for your time. It has been an honor to be here in Waterloo for BlackBerry Jam World Tour. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Sorry, are there any questions? I'm not sure what the URL for that will be. We'll find out for sure. Oh, it's on the worldtour.com site, I just heard. Okay, thanks everyone. There are? Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, the question was, where can you download these slides? And they should be on the site where you registered, the BlackBerry 10 worldjamtour.com. Yes. Okay, the question there was, if you want to use the command line tools, is there a guide that will show you how to use QCC, how to use everything to sign? Now, the way I would do it, I'm not sure if there is a guide, the way I would do it is when you press build, all the commands appear in the console. So by working backwards from that, because you can see what the managed build did for you, you can build your own build. Maybe not exactly the answer you wanted, but that's how I would do it. Yeah. Yeah, for the Air Native extensions, there is documentation. WebWorks extensions will be written with the native NDK tools that we've talked about today. Now, there's documentation with WebWorks on how to write those and how to make sure they run. So, yeah, the question was, are there documents describing how to get the ability to build the Air extensions and the native extensions? Okay, I'm really out of time now, so please email me or tweet me a question. I am here to answer. I'm here to help. If I don't know anything, I am definitely going to pass it on to people who do. Thank you again so much for your time.